Hey guys, it's Miss Gibbs again, here with another test correction opportunity for you. This is for our extended students in particular, but this is Unit 6, the proportions test, which we took right before the Christmas holidays. Okay, so here we go. If 48 apples cost $12, how many apples can be purchased for $3? Well, let's see. This is one of our proportion problems, and all we simply need to do is, as in my class, we talked about writing 48. Okay, that's not going to work. 48 is to, or relates to, $12 as, in the same respect or same proportion as something, because we don't know how many apples, so that something is represented as X or any variable you choose, compared to $3. So as long as I have dollars in the denominator and apples in the numerator, I'm pretty good. Next, we cross multiply here, and I'm going to end up with an equation of 12 times X. These cross products must be equal to each other in order for this to work and be proportionate. So I'm going to multiply 48 times 3. And I get a result of 12x is equal to equals 144. Divide both sides by 12, divide by 12. Whatever I do to the left, got to do to the right. And find out that x equals 12. So the answer is D. Melissa reads 55 pages in 2 hours. Excuse me one second. You know, Miss Gibbs likes to change pen colors every now and again. Keep it exciting. Okay? Okay. So Melissa reads 55 pages in 2 hours. Which of the following could be used to find about how many pages she reads in 6 hours? So again, we want to compare pages to hours, or vice versa. Pages is to hours as pages are to hours. Okay? Have to be consistent. That's an R. So if she reads 55 pages, 55 is to 2 hours as how many pages does she read in 6 hours? That means we don't know how many pages, so that would be our variable X, and we compare that to 6 hours. So hours to hours in the denominator, pages to pages are compared in the numerators. Okay, since we didn't have to work this one out, that makes our job easier, so we're just looking for the right setup. So it could be 55 over 2 is equal to X over 6, or we also could be looking for 2 over 55. Just so you're aware, 2 is compared to 55 as 6 is to X. Either one of these would be correct answers. So let's look again. 55 over 2 is compared to 6 over X. Nah, that's not it. 2 over 55 could be is compared to X over 6. Nah, that's not it either. 55 to 6 is compared to 2 over X. That won't work because that would be, well, that would be, no. 55 compared to 2 is equal to X over 6. There we got it. Keep it moving. Alright, so let's keep going here and scroll on over, scroll down to number 3, and we'll do 3 and 4 really quickly. My computer's moving slow today, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's continue. Alicia's bill at a restaurant is $25. Okay, how much money would she need to leave as a tip? So all we're interested in is how much tip. If she plans to tip them 15%. So that 15% is our tip rate. Rates are always expressed as a percentage. Okay, and so once we calculate the tip rate, we multiply our tip rate 25 times the tip rate of 15%, which we would express as a decimal, unless you know how to convert it in the calculator, which my class I showed you. 25 times 0.15, or excuse me, 15 hundredths, that would give me an amount of $3.75. Make sure I can see that decimal there. Okay, so the correct answer, if I just want to know how much should she leave as a tip, here's your correct answer: $3.75. Not to be confused with, if you went too far, you might have done something like, excuse me, if you added the $3, if you added $3.75 to 25, then you would have gotten $28.75. Well, that's a big decimal. Change to a different font. That would be wrong, because that would be asking you the total amount that she would need to leave, which includes the bill plus the tip. But that's not what they asked us for. So we have to be very careful and very certain. $3.75 is the amount of tip, and tip only. Alright, let's continue. Okay, number 4. A sweater is on sale for 35% off the original price of $44. So 35% is my rate. $44 is my original price. What is the amount? Let me show you a couple of ways you could have done this. Quite simply, you could take $44, 44 times 0.35, because I would have to change my change the percent to a decimal. They only want to know the amount of the discount. So again, you just simply need to multiply the amount times the rate, and that gives you an amount of $15.40. I think I'll just keep it simple and we'll leave it right there, because your answer is $15.40. Okay, let's, in the interest of time, let's continue to move on. Why is that doing that? Interesting. Something weird is happening, folks. Excuse me while I clear the board. Yes, sir. Please and thank you. Alright, let's just get that out of here. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, these computers, they do funny things. 70% of what number is 91? We're on number 5. 70%. I showed my students in my class that you can translate it. 70% would simply be written as 0.7. Change it to a decimal. Of tells me to multiply. What number? Let's use y, since I just used the x to simplify, or to signify multiplication. 70% of some number, y, means equals, translates to equals 91. You could simply do it this way and create your percent equation such that you have 0.7 y. A simple one-step equation is created directly by using this method. Then divide both sides by 0.7. Divide the right side by 0.7. And you would get an answer of y equals 130 using your handy dandy calculator. Okay, quite simple. The other way you could have done this would have been to use your is over of your percent proportion equation. Is over of equals the percentage. What is that numerical number they gave you for the percentage? Divided by 100. The parts out of the whole. So how many parts out of 100, if there were 100 parts, is equivalent to the parts that you are seeking out of the total that you actually have. So this one could have been set up Of what number? The of is what we're looking for. The is the 91 in this case. 70%. I'm bouncing around here, I'm sorry. 70%, that means 70 parts out of 100 is equal to, of what number is 91? So the is 91 and the of is what we're looking for. We don't know what the whole amount is. So it's 91 parts of some number x. Cross multiply, you would end up with 70x is equal to 91 times 100 would give you 9100. Numbers look a little bigger, maybe a little more intimidating, but it's okay. Follow the rules and you'll be fine. Divide both sides by 70. Divide by 70. Dividing each of these by 10, I can take a 0 for a 0. So now I'm simply left with x equals 910 divided by 7, which now looks more reasonable to you, possibly, and such that it equals 130. Either method will work. Again, this is using the percent proportion setup, where you have two proportions equal to each other and you multiply, find their cross products, equate them to each other. And the other is direct translation of the sentence into a numerical equation, and that will net you a shorter operation most of the time, where you have a simple one-step equation to solve for. Whatever works for you, works for me, as long as we are consistent and correct every time. Okay, let's change that pen color again. Okay, let's go green. What is number 6 talking about? Again, 135% of 220 is what number? Let's go with the percentage first. Let's do the proportion setup. 135 parts out of 100. The percent out of 100 is equal to, the of now is of 220. That lets us know that the whole amount is 220. Is what number? I don't know. So I'll represent it with x. My equation becomes 100 times x. Cross products, 100x must be equal. And then 135. Let me get my calculator out here again. It keeps going away. 135 times 220. That's going to be an awfully large number of 29,700. I'm not scared. Okay, divide both sides by 100. This is, excuse me, we'll make that a 0. 100. And I can divide it, take a 0 for a 0. There we go. So I end up with x is equal to 297. One might ask, excuse me, how did you get a number larger than 220? Well, if you think about it, does it make sense? We should always ask ourselves that each time. 135% of something means that I should end up with more than I started with, because 100% of anything is the same thing. It's actually being multiplied by 1. So if I were to try to find 100% of 220, I would get 220. So actually, if we had used that kind of logic in the very beginning, we wouldn't even have had to do all of this work. The reason being is because 297 is the only answer that would give us something larger than the 220. 135% is obviously more than 220. But that takes practice, guys. So let's continue. Okay, with that, it looks like we are close to the end of our session. I'm going to erase this that I started to do, and let's pick it back up in the next video. See you in a moment.